Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about Margot Robbie's Barbie. Woo! Let's get into it. Oh boy, here we go. Right? Wow, we live in a seriously upside down world, man. There's some stuff happening in the world. This is hard to even put all this in context, but I want to dig into this, man, because this is important, right? All right, so yeah, where to even start with this? Oh, okay. So first of all, why do I call it Margot Robbie's Barbie? Margot Robbie's going to bring a lot of people to this movie. She is a legit star, man. I think she has an Oscar, right? She has an Oscar, right? So she has the critical claim, and the other thing is she has the commercial claim, right? So she is world famous for being Harley Quinn, right? But she was also in The Big Short, right? And that's like a super cerebral film, and she really transformed the image of I shouldn't say transform. Actually, she kind of did transform the image of Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn came in the, can you believe it? Harley Quinn came out in the Batman animated series, which is huge. It's classic, right? Quite literally a modern classic, right? And it's one of those things like, it's on our side, it's on the genre side, right? Fantasy, sci-fi, but it's considered by real critics to be one of the best television shows ever made, right? And that really presented Harley Quinn specifically, right? And Harley Quinn looked like a Harlequin, like a card Harlequin, right? And Margot Robbie literally transformed that and made Harley Quinn world famous, right? And it's one of these things where a marriage between film and printed material, right? And of course, this is where Dungeons and Dragons is going. If y'all's ain't all right, you need to recognize, right? There's a good chance, right? There is a good chance we are looking at, there is a good chance we are truly looking at the Ryan Gosling as Dritz Do'Urden. That is a possibility, like in our future, right? So, our dance with Hollywood may not be done yet, right? So it's gonna get interesting, right? But Margot Robbie is huge. She, and she's had many other, she worked with Leonardo DiCaprio, and she did I, Tonya, which fantastic film. I watched it. She's major Hollywood star, right? And so I say this is Margot Robbie's Barbie because, who are you gonna say? Is this Greta Gerwig? I don't know who the heck Greta Gerwig is. I haven't Googled her yet, right? So I don't really know, right? But I know who the heck Margot Robbie is, right? So this is Margot Robbie's Barbie. Let's not get into it. All right, so let's get into this. Okay, what we're gonna talk about right now is Dungeons and Dragons, Margot Robbie's Barbie, and gender politics. Okay, so first of all, let's just okay. Where are we at? What? Oh man, there's so much to talk about here. Okay, let's do it real quick. What is Dungeons and Dragons history with gender politics in like 2 sentences? It's massively progressed gender politics, and it's on the bleeding edge of gender politics. Okay, so basically, Dungeons and Dragons, it was kind of a big deal in 1974. War games were war games, and people didn't really care what anybody on a single chit that represented an entire war band meant, right? And then Gary Gygax was like, you're going to know what your one soldier ate for breakfast, and you're going to decide it, right? And it took about a week before, a player was like, hey, I want my soldier to be a lady woman. And they're like, but you're a dude. And they're like, and there was like this moment where, and this was decades before this was being discussed in other mediums, right? And get this. So the reality is, from 1974 on, and Gary Gygax was like, yeah, of course you could be a woman, right? We were getting into gender identity issues and gender politics in 1974. And right now, right, Dungeons and Dragons is light years ahead of any other tabletop role-playing game in the world as far as impacting gender politics and being impacted by gender politics, right? Now, the reality is the majority of people who play Dungeons & Dragons today are men. Okay, we know that. There's been multiple surveys brought forward by Hasbro that and they're trying to get it, set, but the majority of people, the breakdown is actually 59-41. That's the last major survey put out by Hasbro that, kind of did the breakdown, right? So, we really are on the bleeding edge of gender politics, because there's been a lot of people saying, hey, does Dungeons & Dragons do enough to highlight, women's achievement in Dungeons & Dragons, both, on the design side and literally in the lore world side, right? And if I read every D&D canon hardback, right? And I can tell you right now, Dragonlance Shadow Dragon Queen is, canon hardback -1, very, very recent, and it was lady women with power to the hilt. It was just you couldn't find a dude who wasn't a villain in that book, essentially, right? It was, it was hard to find a dude in that book who was not a villain, who had any real power or was not way behind multiple women who were listed in the book, right? And so D&D has this history of progressiveness, right? But it also has a majority of its players are men, right? So, and they also want to reflect what the community wants. Does that mean they want to reflect what men want? Right? It's a good question, And it's a complicated question, and this is complicated, okay? So let's talk about Margot Robbie's Barbie. So first of all, we got a full trailer for it, right? And here's where you land, right? The poster for the book says, "She's everything," referring to Barbie. He's just Ken. So the movie right out of the gate is saying women up, men down, right? And it sets the tone for the entire trailer, right, for the movie. And it's just Barbie literally rules the world and Ken sucks at every single level and is completely unneeded and is completely irrelevant. And it looks like the entire film is going to be a celebration of Barbie and a castigation of Ken, right? Now, okay, I get it, right? For a long time, men had power and women were in the back seat, right? That is completely changed now, right? There are certainly examples where men still lead in individual cases, but at the macro level, it's done. I can tell you that right now. You would not believe how strongly in 2023 America, women are crushing it. Here's the trends. So Hannah Rosen, brilliant woman, 10 years ago, wrote the book called The End of Men, and every day since she wrote that book has proven every word she said right? And these are all her patterns, right, that she called out. Men don't go to college anymore, generally, okay? And then if they do bother to go to college, they don't graduate, right? And then generally men are who actually present as a man are considered toxic, right? Toxic masculinity is a thing. Toxic femininity, that ain't a thing, right? Toxic masculinity is you will find that defined in 100 places. Toxic femininity is not even a debate, right? It doesn't exist, right? And so literally the idea of being masculine is considered as transformed into being considered toxic. Across the board, women are checking out on men and are nope, thank you, next. And not the next guy, the next nobody or somebody who's not a man, right? And I mean everywhere. They're checking out on them as dates. They're checking out on them as husbands. They're checking out on them even as fathers, right? And literally, the fathering aspect is often purchased now, from a scientific medical, it's kind of, is there a vending machine for that yet? Not yet, in another year, whatever, right? It's bad. It is very bad. And so, and increasingly, men are falling off. Oh, and here's the last one, right? deaths of despair. Men die deaths of despair left and right. If you don't know what a death of despair is, go check it out. It's horrific, and it is across the board for men, and it's seen very little for women, right? So here's where we land with this, right? So Margot Robbie's Barbie looks going to be like it's going to be an absolute celebration of womanhood in America and an absolute castigation of manhood in America, right? And here's the thing, you know, women had the, you know, they had the short end of the stick for a long time, but they've had the right end of the stick for about 20 years, right? And at this point, I think this could be a massive overshoot and a absolutely horrifically timed film. And the reason why is, yes, women are everything now. Men are just men, right? That they've won, right? But I just watched Winning Time, the rise of the LA Lakers dynasty. It's one of the best seasons. It is one of the best seasons of television I've ever watched in my entire life. And I think, and so I'm talking a lot about basketball, and I think what's going to happen with Margot Robbie's Barbie is what this film is it's like the score is 112 women to 76 men, and this is women like coming in for like an 8-foot arcing slam dunk on men, knocking men back into the paint, down on the paint, landing with both feet, you know, and then just baring their teeth and roaring at men and saying, "You suck. You are nothing," right? "We have dusted you at every single level. Goodbye," right? And just saying, we you know, but the problem is, it's obvious to everybody. It's the slam dunk when the score's 112 to 76, right? When the score's 76 to 79, you could do that slam dunk, right? And you could, you know, bare your teeth and you could celebrate your win. But now is not the time, man. There are literally millions of men who have been told by multiple women in their life, by their sisters, by their mothers, by women they tried to riz, "You suck, you are nothing, get back, get down, you do not matter, you are not needed." And by the millions, I can tell you now, right? This movie, you know, Barbie, the Barbie movie is like, it makes fun that Ken does not know how to riz Barbie at all, right? Like, and it's rough. It is so rough because you're like, yes, I know this. I know a lot of young men who are not getting dates. Guys who are 6 feet tall, you know, 6-figure salaries and cannot get a date. This is like bonkers. It is, you know, and it is rough, right? It is rough out there. And so I think the Margot Robbie Barbie movie is the slam dunk that was earned 40 points ago. The timing on this is terrible, right? It is just like men are dying deaths of despair by the millions because they know what the Barbie movie is about to celebrate is true. And it is just bad timing and a bad mix, okay? So what is our lessons as Dungeon Masters from the Margot Robbie Barbie movie, right? Here's the lesson, okay? We have to be incredibly careful that the gender politic message that we send in our Dungeons and Dragons game is not just right, but it is said at the right time, and it's said with a level of sensitivity, right? And so the reality is, yes, women up, right? Like, and right now we have built Dungeons and Dragons in a structure where, you know, women are completely embraced in Dungeons and Dragons. They have equal strength, equal intelligence, you know, there's no difference in scores, you know, the way there used to be. We've progressed, right? But there actually may be a point in time, right, where we may be reaching a point right now where it is possible to actually celebrate manhood in Dungeons and Dragons because the D&D community will allow it, right? I'm not saying we're there yet because I can't say it, right? Jennifer Kretschmer should be able to come out and say, or Amanda Heyman, right? Or DM Connie Chang, right? Or does Kelsey Dion play Dungeons and Dragons? But one of those people should be able to come and say, hey, if you're a man and you want to portray a masculine man as a Dungeons and Dragons player character, I know people might have gritted their teeth, on even attempting that even 2 years ago. But because you guys are dying deaths of despair by the millions, and maybe there should be a place where you can actually be a man in this world if you can't do it in the real world. Maybe we can give you a break and let you do it at the table, right? Maybe you could be a man, actually be a man, and be needed for man things in the Dungeons and Dragons world for a little bit, and then maybe we could transfer that energy and everything that's happening there to the IRL world, right? I can't say it. I can't say that it's time for that yet, right? Jennifer Kretschmer could say it. Amanda Heyman could say it. DM Connie Chang could say it, right? I think Kelsey Dion has a standing to say it, right? I hope they do. I think we've reached a point in Dungeons & Dragons history where we really need a place where a man could be a man and where man things can be needed again, right? I think, and this is the thing, Dungeons & Dragons is this amazing engine where things that are impossible in the IRL can be possible in the realm of Dungeons & Dragons. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion on this topic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.